was with a wife and family, and I was earning a living as a guitar player, using the money I earned that in order to teach myself photography. And I was finding that, like all young people, what I'd thought about the profession of photography was most illusion. The money was either in fashion or in advertising. The magazines that used to publish photographs about life, were closing down fast. I don't know why. And I had this friend I'd known since school days, or student days, called Frank Tui. He's quite a distinguished English writer. He's dead now. And he was in Poland working for the British Council, running their branch down in Krakow. So it was a semi-diplomatic position he was in. And he said, the Queen magazine in London has asked me to do a story for them, or a series of articles about life behind the Iron Curtain, as it was then, Poland, for instance. Because this was 3 years after 1956. If you remember all about Hungary, there had also been a lot of trouble in Poland. It looked to me as if this very interesting time was on then, because that was 3 years before. And so when he said he wanted some photographs to go with his articles, I said, great, man, I'll be on the next plane, I had 2 miniature cameras, Leicas, and a self-developing kit, sort of thing you could put it in, load it onto daylight and then close it up. And I used to do that in the kitchen while he was entertaining his friends. I didn't know that Kazimierz was the Jewish Quarter until I started printing up some of the photos. I was doing contact prints, that I could do that there, and developing it in the tank. And they were, oh, this is Kazimierz's Jewish Quarter, And it was all in ruins, dreadful. So I just photographed what I did. I didn't make a thing of it, because there was a lot going on in Krakow, which was very, very interesting indeed, I thought. And then I think those photographs I've got of City Square, I think that's Krakow, with the big church and all that, And then every time I saw anything I thought was interesting, not English or not Europe, or might have shown us a side of life there in Poland, I took. And I was very well treated by everybody. Well, I can't remember where the police came, several places. And they went rough. They just said, what have we got here, Because somebody had pointed out there's a man there taking photographs, And they didn't mind. They just said, oh, it's all right, just landscape. I said, very beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. And that was it. Also, there's one photograph we got somewhere in the last show of a lot of beggar women about, and people being very kind to them and giving them money when they could. That impressed me. At Nova Huta, everyone said, you've got to go there. It looked to me the most god-awful dump in the world, but still just miles of these identical huge blocks of unpointed concrete flats, with the bricks unpointed, so they looked awful. And I saw a man being grabbed by police and being shoved into a car, and he was trying to stop with his boots, And men came running across to shout at the police, let him go, you bastards, like that. Now that wouldn't have happened earlier. Here are people with the courage to do that, and the police didn't arrest them. And I thought that was very interesting indeed. The thing was in turmoil. But I do remember going first to the huge university, the Catholic one there. I made several interviews there and talked to the head of it. And they were saying how difficult the political situation is, but they didn't want to go into details. They didn't know who I was or what I was going to talk about, I took quite a lot of photographs there of the students and the teachers and the lecturers and their canteen and all that. And then I walked around the town as I'd done in Krakow, photographing anything that I thought was striking. I just assumed that everybody in an official position of any kind must be a Communist Party member, and otherwise he wouldn't be there, So I was just careful what I said to people. I didn't make anything that might lead them into a trap. What's your opinion of this or that? I never asked that kind of thing at all. So we just talked about pleasant things or humorous things. I just took anything that made a decent composition, but not too arty, you know, because you get too arty, then everybody thinks it's getting too self-consciously poetic. We're supposed to be reporting on life in Poland, not Gerald House's aesthetic sensibilities. There are various kinds of art, as we know. I think almost anything can become an art, even banking in the end, if given time, like dancing and warfare and all this kind of thing. But that I think the most indirect, in one sense, is painting and sculpture, because it takes a long time looking at it to absorb its meaning. Then it does come to you gradually, you take it home with you. Music is more direct. You still have to translate the sounds and the beauty into thoughts. But poetry is the most immediate, because that is the thought. And strangely, there's a paradox here. I think of all the Western painters that's closest to photography, the Cartier-Bresson has the instantaneous, decisive message, was of all people Vermeer van Delft, who everybody praises for his silence and his stillness. I think they are. There's a famous picture everybody must know of a woman reading a letter in front of a window. That's not stillness, it's beautifully monumental. She's looking at this, what a lot of rubbish, she's going to tear it and throw it down. You can see that in her face already. He cut the decisive moment, and his picture after picture is like that. He makes a triviality universal by making a perfect composition, beautifully balanced up. That universalizes it. Why do we compose photographs through a camera eye? Because you know, as you look through it like that beyond the frame, the world goes on. It goes backwards, far enough it comes back to you, behind you, the whole globe, this way, right round that way, and beyond that, the heavens above. So we have to try and put some order in that out of what we see by chance, and that then puts the viewer in mind of the universality of everything you see. That's roughly it. When I arrived at Auschwitz, we got to the gate, there was this Arbeit macht frei. And there's nothing reinforced more completely and violently the utter cynicism of the whole Nazi regime. They didn't believe in anything really, except brute force. And this probably is the truth about all kinds of fascism. It'll attach itself to any political philosophy, movement, group you like, but underneath it only believes in kicking you down into submission now and putting yourselves in charge. And I took that photograph because here were two children with some cows against this awful, infinitely large and hateful fence with this guard towers all along like that from the past, and the gate and all that. And I thought this contrast just worked somehow. I don't know why. It did. Hope for the future. So you don't put it crudely, you know. And that was it. And I think it was the best photograph there that I took in Poland at all. I went by aircraft flying over the battlefield and seeing all these farm areas full of holes, you know, where the shelling had been going on, and the ruined buildings and all that. Here was a country, the victim of a poetic tragedy on a vast scale, twice over, 3 times over. Twice in 1940, 1939 I mean, and 40, and then again after the end of the war. I was extremely impressed with the speed that they were building residences and shopping centres and painting the outsides with very attractive abstract decorations. They were most attractive to me. I said, why can't we do this in London, for God's sake, this awful nonsense we build here? You could smell it. You kept coming across the square and there was a pathetic sort of stick with a little thing about it. Here were killed 45 people in front of their families, you know, just to remind you. Oh, this is where such and such a building was. It was a residential school or something of this. But I mean, with a few flowers hanging down from the bit of wood. I noticed people loved American, well, they thought it was up-to-date jazz. But it was neither one thing nor the, it wasn't pop music either, which was only just starting. But it was a sort of, they call themselves the two-beat stompers, as a typical kind of thing. There were a couple of young lads dressed up. There's a photograph of them somewhere, you know. I thought that Poland would come up and up once you could get the Russians out. Once you get them out with all their bloody tanks and everything else, you see. And for instance, I'd noticed that in graphic design, the Polanders were ahead of us here. Adventurous covers for magazines and books and things are beautifully done and very original and full of character. I said, well, this is the future. Well, there was this palace of culture, which then was standing isolated, surrounded by desolate bits and pieces and nothing much, going up and up and up and up and up, looking absolutely out of place. As Stalin's president, he said, he didn't tell us at the time, they were going to have to pay for it in our coal exports to the Soviet Union, which they weren't going to pay for. I felt terribly sorry, sad for it, it was dreadful. I thought, we're going to do this again soon, you know, atomic war and all that. And there was no increase in tolerance anywhere, of any kind, as far as I could see. When I got back to London, our neighbour upstairs looked at these pictures. She said, I've got a friend, a Polish friend, who would love to see these. He rang up a woman from the Polish embassy. I don't know what, cultural attaché or something there. She came and she was furious at them. What do you mean by taking pictures like this? I said, what are you talking about? She said, where are all the dancing people? I said, well, there's some dancers there. No, I mean the cheerful faces. Where are all the... I said, I didn't see any. Polish people, they are a very proud people, and they have tried to keep these bloody Russians and Germans and Poles and Austrians and everybody, Swedes. Oh, one after the other. It's like Palestine, really. Everybody crisscrosses that to get at the enemy on the other side. That's your tragedy, really.